All right. Hello, everyone. Very good evening to the one who have joined here for yet another exciting session at our prestigious platform named GIBS IRE Talks. Well, GIBS is, I would say, a pioneer in the management domain. Inception since last 11 years in Bangalore, capital of Karnataka. And we have multiple programs, and the students' diversity has always been our strength. We have a wide range of students from top-notch Jammu till South Kanyakumari. That's a beautiful mix that we have. And as a moral responsibility, as being a business school, the moral responsibility is always believes in nurturing tomorrow's leaders and also encouraging entrepreneurship. And today, the ecosystem and the environment at India is so glad. I mean, there are humongous number of people who are willing to start something on their own. And that's where we start this flagship program named IRE, which stands for Innovation, Research, and Entrepreneurship, which conducts numerous activities. It can be workshops, seminars, conferences, the virtual talks like this. In the last 1 year, I'm so very happy to have hosted numerous experts across the globe. And today, yet again, I'm so very happy to host my good friend, Mr. Jim Callaghan from Netherlands all the way. Social media, is so fantastic. I was just talking about the launch of the Mind Valley School. We're all out in exploring something on the mindfulness, and I happened to accidentally meet Jim Callaghan. And I think with a couple of interactions, I believe we have a long way to go in nurturing tomorrow's leaders and also contributing to their the mental well-being. Well, that's the whole topic for today. We have coined it very beautifully: the health-centric mindset, redefining the path to success. In my interaction with Jim, here's something that he shared something that how he went through. Let me tell you, he is a author, a best-selling author, I would say, and also the founder and health coach of Wellnesstory from Netherlands. But behind this wellness story, there is a beautiful story also, where Mr. Jim himself, after working with top-notch corporates, there is always something that, which is a typical example I would give in the corporate life of any individual, right? There are a lot of stress, there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of challenges in terms of the work-life balance. He himself has undergone a lot of this challenges, made him to start something of his own, and has been able to, come out and start sharing this knowledge with the people who are in much need of it. And that's where I requested Mr. Jim to talk something about this, because we understand the kind of the pressurous situations that we are all in today. And with absolutely zero hesitation, Mr. Jim accepted my invitation, and I'm so very happy that we have hosted him here today. And I'm very sure that one day I'm going to host him in my campus in Bengaluru, where we'll have much more interactions and deliberations. On behalf of entire management team, faculties and students, and all of them who have joined to this wonderful session, I extend my heartfelt welcome to Mr. Jim. Jim, it's such a pleasure having you here. And I'm all excited to listen to you. I'm sure the audience as well. Over to you, Mr. Jim.
Very good. Thank you so much, Professor Rao. It's an absolute privilege to be here. Normally, my wife and I, Natasha, we work with senior aviation executives. And these are folks that are kind of midway through their career. They're already presenting fairly serious health issues. And really struggling with how they're going to continue with this frantic pace in their busy careers. And so it's a real privilege to be among students who are the future business leaders at the start of your career, before you make all the mistakes that I've made, to be able to try and share with you the importance of having a health-centric mindset in your own life and also in your career. You're about to go into companies and found your own companies. And so I firmly believe that what you hear today will give you a huge competitive advantage. And I know it's a bit of a hard sell because you're all young, and I was once young myself, and you think you're invincible, but it's such an important foundation to have when you're starting this career. And in today's world, hyper competitive, and in order to be able to sustain the level of performance that you're going to need to be successful, you absolutely need a firm foundation in your health. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. And yeah, and hopefully you can see my
Yes,
presentation.
the
Yeah.
screen is absolutely visible.
Okay, so what I want to do before we get started is I want to do a little poll of the audience. And unfortunately, I can't really see you, but I want to ask you a question. And that's, how many of you would board an aircraft that hasn't been maintained for years, that is running on bad fuel, and has a pilot that is seriously sleep deprived? Okay, now I can't see any hands, but I'm pretty sure that nobody would do that because that would be madness. And yet, isn't it ironic that that's how we treat our own amazing machine, which is our body? We expect ourselves to operate at the highest levels, and yet we deprive ourselves of the best fuel. We don't exercise to move our bodies, and we deprive ourselves of sleep and rest. And the shocking thing is that we're already seeing the impact of this in your generation. And I just want to present some rather shocking statistics to set this up. There have been a lot of studies done about the levels of depression and anxiety among Indian students, and it's quite shocking that 50% of you, so half of you, are feeling depressed. And 15% of those folks are extremely depressed or severely depressed. When it comes to nutrition, 60% of you are skipping the most important meal of the day, which is your breakfast. And over 3/4 of you are regularly eating ultra-processed food. And I would say that's probably an understated percentage. Maybe things are a little bit better in India than in the rest of the Western world. The other statistic is in terms of movement, only less than 1/4 of you are getting the minimum amount of recommended movement by the World Health Organization. That's just 22 minutes of moderate activity a day. And in terms of sleep, about 60% of you are not getting the minimum of 7 to 9 hours sleep, and 7 being the absolute minimum that we need to function. The average sleep time in Indian students is about 6.8 hours. So the low end is much less than that. And this is having a dramatic impact on your health, but it's not your fault. We live in a world, in a society where we have unprecedented levels of comfort. We hardly have to move anymore. We are drowning in food, or mostly so-called food. A lot of it is poison. And we're drowning in stress created by our work environments, our school environments, and just the general bad news in the media and all of this stuff. And it's having a dramatic impact on our ability to sleep and relax and rest. And so what I would like to do today is to try to convince you that despite all of what's going on in your life, it is absolutely critical to start building a foundation of health and building this health-centric mindset. And what I want to do is 3 things. The first is give you a little bit about my background, and Professor Rao already alluded to it. I had a high-flying career, but I suffered the ravages of the corporate career and managed to come out through the other side. So I'll share a little bit about that. And the second thing is talk to you about what my wife and I rediscovered as the 4 drivers of health. And the third thing is I want to take you through what we have devised as a model, the takeoff model, to help people to build that healthy foundation to supercharge their health and performance in life. But before we get to that, what I'd like to do is a little pre-flight check with you, because I know it's your evening time over there, and you've probably had a busy day and you're probably a little bit low energy, and we've got a lot to get through. So what I want to do is a couple of simple things. The first thing we're going to do is, and depending on where you are, if you're not very close to people, I need you to just put your arms out like this, and then we're just going to slowly roll our arms forward for 5 times. Lovely. I see Professor Rao doing it. And then we're going to roll them backwards for 5 times. And this is just a great little exercise that you can do at any time of the day if you're kind of hunched over your computer for long periods of time. And just try to breathe through these exercises. The second one we're going to do is we're going to check our rudder. So you're going to, in your standing position, you're going to put your hands on your hips and just gently turn to the side and try and check your rudder. We're going to do this 5 times each side. And this is a wonderful exercise to do if you're sitting for long periods of time and you get that pain in your lower back from being sitting for so long. 2 more. And just breathe through it, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The third one we're going to do is we're going to check our landing gear. And it's basically a partial squat. So hopefully if you have a chair behind you, just sit down and stand up. And do it again. Sit down and stand up. And one more time. Sit down and stand up. And squatting is something that we did all the time before we invented chairs. And it's a great way of opening up your hips, your knees, and your ankles. The last one that we're going to do is we're going to start our engine. And it's like an old piston engine. So we're going to raise your knees up. You probably can't see my knees, but raise your knees up as high as you can. So you're kind of marching in place. And this is a great way, if you're a runner, you'll recognize this as a nice warm-up. When you're running, again, it just opens up the hips, gets your glutes activated from all the sitting that you're doing during the day. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more energy. You feel a bit more mobile. And now we're going to get into the fun stuff. So apologies for the before and after photographs. But this fat chap on the left on my screen is me after I left the corporate world about 6 years ago. And the one on the right is me last year competing in the CrossFit Open. So it seems like a bit of an extreme example, but what it indicates is how much we take for granted our bodies. You know, as we get older, we just think that we get old and frail. But this is an example of the power of a health-centric mindset. So I started out as a child. I grew up on a farm in Ireland, so I had a very good, healthy start, eating food that we grew in the garden, and a lot of physical labor working on the farm. I moved to the States when I finished primary school or secondary school, and went through college and law school there. And I quickly picked up the bad habits of the standard American diet. Didn't move very much. You drove everywhere. And because I was working and going to school at the same time, I had very little time for any kind of exercise. Fair amount of stress, but also did a fair amount of partying, if I'm quite honest. And when you're young, you can get away with that to an extent. The problem is that your body remembers this. And so by the time I was finished law school, I was already quite unhealthy, overweight, energy, focus issues. But, you know, you start your career, so you're hard charging, you know, you need to push hard. I started in Linklaters in Brussels, at the time one of the largest law firms in the world. Moved to Etihad or Ryanair, now the largest low fares airline in the world. 9 years there, and then to Etihad Airways. And each time I moved jobs, I thought, okay, this time it will be better. This time I will be more on top of things. This time I will feel better. But because I wasn't addressing the underlying issues, it actually continuously got worse. It was like going from one frying pan into the next fire. And it all came to a head when I joined Uber as their corporate lawyer for EMEA. And I was in a meeting one morning with my boss from the US, with a bunch of external advisors. And, it's something I had been doing my whole career, not a big deal. But at a certain stage in the meeting, I literally couldn't speak. The words that were coming out of my mouth were not what I was trying to say. My brain had literally shut down. And I had to leave the meeting, and it was absolutely terrifying. But I realized afterwards, my body had been sending me flashing red lights for years. And it's not that I completely ignored them. I was going to doctors and trying to figure out why I had such low energy, why I had digestive issues, but nothing was working because, again, I wasn't addressing the key issues in my health. And so that was a wake-up call for me. At the time, my youngest son, my fifth son, the little guy in the photograph, had been born. And I just realized that if I didn't make changes, I wasn't going to be around for him and for my other four boys. And that was really my wake-up call. And so it led me on a journey. My wife, Natasha, is also from an airline background. She's one of the founders of Wizz Air, and she suffered, similar health issues. And so we went on a journey together, and to rediscover our own health. And it's not an easy thing to do. There's so much conflicting information out there, but slowly over time, we started to discover the fundamentals of our health, and that's what led us to found our company Wellnesstory. And what we discovered is that we're sold a lie that in order to be successful, you have to be hard charging all the time. Sleep is the enemy, limit your sleep, and it's win at all costs. And I certainly was bought into that, or you're swept up into that. But the result is ultimately that you're not performing anywhere near your peak, even though you think you are. You're just not. If you're not healthy, you are not performing at your peak or anywhere near it. And the ultimate result is that you have some kind of burnout, or when you retire, you end up with some hideous disease and not be able to enjoy the rest of your life. What we discovered is that there's this performance paradox. So on one hand, this seems like the way to go, like hard charging. But the reality is that if you prioritize both your mental and physical health, we'll talk about how, you fuel your body properly, you move daily, and you get your rest and recovery in, your performance skyrockets. And the bonus is that performance is actually sustainable, that you're not going to burn out at some stage. And I know as business students, you're going to say, okay, well, that sounds, sorry. So as part of this journey, I went to spend some time with this group of folks called the Hadza. And the Hadza are one of the few remaining true hunter-gatherer societies in the world. And what's remarkable about these folks is that they are incredibly healthy and vital and happy people. And so I went as part of my journey to figure out what it means to be healthy and how it impacts on performance. And spending time with these folks was amazing. They are probably the most heavily studied tribe in the world. And the reason is because they have almost zero instances of what we call lifestyle-related diseases. So all of the chronic diseases that we're aware of in the West, things like cancer, heart disease, obesity, dementia, diabetes, et cetera, these folks don't have those diseases. And so the question is, do they have a different gene that we do? Do they have some special drug that they've discovered that we don't know about? And what we found is that the reason why these people are so healthy and they have avoided all of these diseases is because they still live in sync with the natural rhythms that we all evolved with. So they experience stress. I was with them on the hunt when they're hunting a hyena. That's a pretty stressful thing. But as soon as the hunt is over, they rest and they completely de-stress. Unlike us, where everything in life is stress anymore. Bad traffic, a bad grade, break up with your girlfriend, your boyfriend. Everything causes us stress. The stress response is constantly on, and we're not allowing ourselves to de-stress and get those chemicals out of our body. The other thing is that these folks, they're hunter-gatherers. They only eat what they can hunt or gather. So everything is natural, no ultra-processed foods. They move. I trained for 6 months before going there to try and keep up with them when we went on the hunt. They're constantly running after prey or running away from predators. They're climbing, they're lifting, they're carrying, all natural functional movements. And finally, when it comes to rest and recovery, they follow our natural circadian rhythm, which is they go to sleep when the sun goes down and they get up when the sun comes up. And so what we started to rediscover was what we call the 4 fundamental drivers of health. So mindset, how you perceive yourself and the world around you, how you manage stress. Nutrition, how we fuel our bodies. Movement, we're designed to move, how much we move during the day. And then sleep and rest. And the interesting thing that we discovered is that these are not standalone things. And we tend to make the mistake of saying, oh, I need to go on a diet or I need to work out. The reality is that each of these things, each of these drivers has an impact on the other. And so if you think about, if you eat healthy during the day, you have much more energy and you're much more likely to want to move. If you move during the day, you're much more likely to sleep better at night. And we all know if you get good sleep, the next day, you feel like you want to conquer the world. But it doesn't stop there, because then you're going to want to eat even more healthy. You're going to want to make more improvements on your nutrition and your movement, and then it impacts on your sleep. And so you have this beautiful upward cycle of health and performance moving in the same direction. Does that make sense? And so, as I was going to say, as business students, you're thinking, okay, well, show me the money. Like, yeah, I get the fact that it's important to be healthy, but how does this actually impact my performance, and how is it a competitive advantage? Well, we've done quite a bit of work in this area because companies ask this question, and it's entirely clear. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but the numbers back it up. And so, if you look at an individual level from employees, the percentages are astronomical. So 27% are more likely to have their performance rated as excellent. So working in a company that has a health-centric approach means that you're much more likely to perform at a higher level. 45% said that they're more adaptable to change. Change is one of the most stressful things in a company and in life. So if you're more resilient, if you're more able to deal with that, it's much better for you and for the company. And 59% are less likely to leave the job. In an age where it's hyper competitive to try and get people in, retaining your best people is key for companies. On the company level, A health-centric approach is the number one predictor of sustainable operational performance. The number one predictor. Companies are 3 times more likely to outperform their competitors if they have a health-centric approach.
But
And six,
just,
sorry.
a small question here, because it was quite exciting me to know. The companies are really concerned in this fast-facing world. Are they really concerned about the health-centric approach to be brought into their system? Is it definitely, have you seen that in practice?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So this is our work. This is what we're trying to do. And you're exactly right. Like you would think based on these numbers that it's a slam dunk. Like why are our companies not doing it? But the ones that are doing it are the ones that are beating the competition. And I think that's the important thing for your students is that if you have that mindset now and you bring that with you into your career, this is the result.
Sure. I say it's high
It's
time
really,
everyone realize this, all the companies realize this.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's better for the company, it's better for the individuals working in those companies. Okay, so now hopefully I've convinced you of the power of a health-centric mindset, not only in your own life, but in your career. So the question then becomes, how do we actually achieve this? And so what Natasha and I did was we put together a framework based on these 4 fundamental drivers of health to make it easy for people to incorporate these principles into their lives. Because the problem that we face, all of us, is I don't have time. I know I should be doing this stuff, but I don't have time. Okay, so you have to make it as easy as possible for people to do this, otherwise they won't do it. And so and I'm going to take you through this quite briefly because we don't have a lot of time, but I have sent Professor Rao a link to the electronic copy of our book, and you're more than welcome to read the book. We have a lot of more information and tools in there that will hopefully help you on this journey yourself. But as aviation geeks, we used an airline, common airline term, takeoff, as our acronym for the model. And so I'll take you through each letter, but what's important to note here is that this is not a one-time issue. This is a reiterative process. It's like what I described in the 4 drivers of health. You don't just do these things one time. This has to become part of your lifestyle. And so the interesting thing is that the 3 first letters, so T, A, and K, deal with the mindset piece, and we'll talk through that. And the fasten your seatbelt on the other end is kind of a mindset piece too. So mindset, for me, is the most important part of this. And ironically, it's the last thing that I got when I was going through my own personal journey, because we tend to focus a lot on the what and the how. And, we're so busy doing this and doing that and not really getting our brains on board. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in each of the letters. So the first letter stands for turn off autopilot. And you're probably aware of the term from an aviation background. Airplanes have this piece of software that allows the plane to operate itself in certain circumstances, and it allows the pilots to do other more important things like gossip about their wives and mistresses, stuff like that. But you probably weren't aware that human beings also have an autopilot. And the interesting thing is that we operate sometimes more than 50% of our lives on autopilot. So running programs, habits in our minds without even thinking about our actions. So we have all the common examples like brushing your teeth. Like, you stand there at the mirror every morning. It's just something you do. You don't even think about it. The interesting thing is when you try and change that, like if you start using an electric toothbrush and you try and change to that where you're supposed to keep it in one place for 5 seconds and then move it to the next place. Have you ever tried that? I'm still, after using an electric toothbrush for about 5 years, I still find myself moving it around in my mouth, right? So that's the power of habit and autopilot. And as part of any change, we need to get our brain on board first. And the problem with our brain is it has one job in life, and that's to keep us alive. If we're alive, the brain is like, I'm doing my job, and I'm not going to change anything, even if the long-term health implications are serious. So habits are very good because they allow us to do repetitive tasks without having to relearn them all the time. But if they're acting in the long term against our health, that's when we need to be careful and to try and change those. And the key thing about the brain in this respect is that if you try to do too much at one time, like New Year's Eve resolution, why do New Year's Eve resolutions always fail? Because we're trying to make these big changes. This year, I'm going to get healthy. How long do they last? Most of them not even till the end of January, because our brain freaks out and says, no, this is too much. I'm not doing this. And so we have to take small, consistent steps in order to ease the brain into these changes. My top tip in this area, and there's lots of other tools in the book, but if you want to change a habit, once you determine something is against your health, like take, for example, in the morning or the afternoon, whenever you reach for a cup of coffee, you also grab a donut or whatever the equivalent of that is in India. That's obviously not a good habit. There are certain advantages of caffeine. I'm not going to get into that because it's a whole other conversation. But when you pair it with something unhealthy, like a sugary, fatty substance, over time, that is going to lead to health issues. Now, in order to break that habit, you need to create the environment to make that happen. So instead of having sugary donuts laying around the house, you might have some healthy snacks like nuts. And if you have the munchies when you need to have your coffee, just have a small handful of nuts, right? If you want to take up yoga in the morning, leave your yoga mat next to the bed. If you want to take up running, leave your running shoes next to the door. So that acclimates your brain into, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm on board. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay, so once we've started to turn off our autopilot, then we need to start addressing the elephant, or should I say the lion in the room. So everybody talks about stress today. We're drowning in stress. But it may surprise you to know that stress is not the problem. In fact, stress is what kept us alive in nature. And it's still what motivates us to do great things in life. The problem is not stress, it's the chronic stress that we have to deal with. That's the problem. As I mentioned, the Hadza, when they have a stressful, highly stressful situation, they deal with it and then they completely de-stress. We're carrying so much stress with us that it's just mounting all the time. And the problem with the chemicals and hormones that make us superhuman to deal with either fighting the lion or running away with it is that when they remain in our bodies, they're highly toxic and they're causing all kinds of disease. And so managing your stress is the key to success. You want to stay in that zone where you have enough stress to keep you motivated, but you're not redlining to cause health issues. And in the book, we call this the Goldilocks zone. I don't know if people are familiar with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So that's the sweet spot. The top tip that I have for managing your stress is the problem is we're carrying all this stuff around in our head, whether we know it or not. There's so much source of stress and anxiety in our head. And in the background, we use a huge amount of processing power to keep that all, worrying about all this stuff. And so the key is to get it all out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Everything, every tiny thing that is causing you stress, whether it's, your wife has been harassing you for months to hang a picture on the wall. It's in there and it's causing you stress. It's a tiny thing, but things like climate change and war and weather, all of these things are causing us stress, along with things at work, at school, and simply getting them out onto a piece of paper exhaustively, in and of itself, is a relief. You're like, oh my God, there it is. The next step is to divide it into 3 categories. So if you have 3 different rings, the inner ring is what you have complete control over. The second ring is what you have partial control over. And the last ring is what you have almost no control over. So the first one is control over your daily schedule. You can put into your calendar what you need to. And so you make a plan. Here's what I'm going to do today. And that's fine. I have a plan. I'm going to execute it. Things that you have partial control over, like relationships, you can only control your part of the relationship. You can't control other people. So you do what you do and then forget about the reaction of other people. You can't worry about that. The third category is things that you have almost no control over. So things like the weather, traffic, war, they are a source of stress, but we have no control over them. So the first thing to do is, if there are things that you can do that will make you feel better. So if it's climate change, make sure that you're recycling or you're giving to charities that are dealing with the environment. So you say, okay, I can't cure climate change, but I'm doing what I can. And that in and of itself will ease the burden, and then let the rest go. Does that make sense? Try it. I do it all the time. It's an amazingly effective way of controlling your stress. I can't really see people are doing it, but the other really important tool for controlling your stress is your breath. You guys invented pranayama, and have given it to the rest of the world. So I'm probably not telling you something you're not aware of, but our breath is what controls our levels of stress. So when you're stressed, you breathe very shallowly because you're getting ready to tackle the threat. When we breathe deeply in through our nose and out through our mouth, so filling our lungs all the way and releasing it through our mouth, it signals to our body that we're safe. If there's a lion there, you're not going to be standing around breathing deeply. So it's a way of convincing our body that, okay, I'm in a safe situation. I'm going to allow myself to breathe deeply. And so before a meeting, an exam, whatever it is, just take the time to take a few really deep breaths, and it really just switches that state of mind into a more calm state. Okay, once we have started to address our stress or turn off our autopilot and address our stress, now we have the bandwidth to think about, why is health important to us? It sounds like an obvious question, but we tend again to focus on short-term things like, I need to lose 10 kilos to go to my sister or my brother's wedding, or I'm going to work out for 3 months to get my beach body back. We don't really think about why health is such a fundamental issue for us. And the problem is that as human beings, we make decisions based on emotions. We think we're rational beings, but actually we make decisions based on our emotions. And so unless you get your deepest emotional anchor on board, none of this is going to change. Because again, your body is very difficult to change, but you can hack that by telling it, this thing is so important to us that we are going to do it. Because it's not easy. And unless you have that strong emotional anchor, you're going to fall off the wagon and end up back to square one. And during my career, that's happened to me so many times where you think, okay, I'm going to work out, I'm going to go on a diet. But unless you stop and think, why is this important? Why is this the most important thing in my life? Work intervenes, kids intervene, and you just end up back at square one. And so the top tip here is, in order to find that deep emotional anchor, like what is your purpose for being healthy? You go through this exercise called the 5 whys. I think it was Toyota chairman who came up with this. To try and get to the real reason for something is you ask the question 5 times. Why is it important for me to be healthy? And for me, what I ended up with was, I need to be healthy to be strong for my family and my friends. And I also want to be an example for the people that I'm trying to teach and mentor. So that's my purpose for being healthy. Now, it's going to be different for everyone, but you need to find what that strong emotional anchor is for you. Okay, so that's the main mindset piece. Now we get to the fun stuff. So food. A lot of times we associate food as something we stuff in our mouths because we've got this hungry feeling, this uneasy feeling in our stomach that we don't like. So it's like, okay, what can I do to get rid of this feeling? But the reality is that food is 3 essential things. One, it's our fuel. It's what allows us to do what we need to do. It's literally the gasoline in our tank. And if you're putting bad fuel into your system, your performance is going to be bad. It's as simple as that. The second major aspect of food is that it's our building blocks. This saying, we are what we eat, is literally true. Our food is what we are. And people think of the human body as just being this static thing that, yeah, okay, we get a bit older and a bit more wrinkly, but essentially it's the same thing. But it's not. We are changing every second of every day. We have cells that are dying and new cells that are being created. So much so that science now shows that every 7 years, effectively, we are a completely different person. Almost every single cell in our body has changed over that period of time. And for me, that was a hugely hopeful fact that if I start eating healthy now, I'm literally building a healthier body. And in 7 years, I will be what I am now. I'm much more healthy than what I was 7 years ago. And the third aspect, and again, I'm teaching you something that you taught the world thousands of years ago through Ayurveda, is that food is medicine. Not just the macros like protein and carbohydrates and fats, but you have the vitamins, the minerals, and now we know of things like phytochemicals, which is literally medicine. Pharmaceutical companies are trying to steal it from nature and resell it back to us. But the reality is, our food gives us everything we need to be healthy. It doesn't matter whether you're a vegan or a carnivore, or these are kind of extreme ends, but as long as you are getting all of the required nutrients from your food, you will be healthy. And so the top tip, again, it sounds very basic, is eat real food. And it's not easy to do in this modern world because there's so many things out there masquerading as food, but they're just cocktails of chemicals that are to trick our bodies into thinking it's food. And these are the chemicals that are making us sick and weak. So it's about eating natural food, the best quality you can get, and avoiding as much as you can anything that comes in a box where your grandmother wouldn't understand the ingredients. Okay, moving on to my favorite activity, which is overhauling your movement. Now, as I mentioned, I spend time with the Hadza. These folks are constantly moving, and that's the way we evolved. And the problem from a health point of view is that movement is not optional. Our bodies are designed to need movement. It's not like, oh, I don't go to the gym because I don't care about being muscular. I don't want to be a bodybuilder. That's not the point. The point is that every system in our body requires constant movement. And the problem with how our society is structured today, how our companies, how our schools, for that matter, are structured, is we spend hours and hours a day sitting on our behinds. And you've probably heard this saying that sitting is the new smoking. And like me, you will have thought, okay, that's BS. Like that, merely sitting in a chair cannot be as harmful as smoking. But when you think about the physiology of sitting, we're thinking the two major blood vessels in our body. And it's causing our heart, the main organ in our body, to have to work much harder. So we increase our blood pressure. We're getting less oxygen to every cell in our body. That's why you feel tired and unfocused during the day, because you're not getting enough oxygen. The other aspect is our lymphatic system, which is the garbage disposal system in our body, which doesn't have a pump, and it literally relies on our constant movement. So it's responsible for taking all the toxins and garbage out of our body. And if you're not moving, all this stuff is just sitting there in your body and causing all kinds of health problems. And so, on the other hand, moving is actually medicine. So for your brain, when we move, when we challenge our bodies, we're creating all kinds of incredible chemicals. Even from a depression point of view, it's the best antidepressant medication you can get by far. Now, the problem is, how do we move more in this busy life of ours? I don't have time to go to the gym. My life is too busy. What we say to people is going to the gym is optional. It's great. I go to the gym, I work out regularly. But for people who literally don't have the time to go to the gym, more important than that is looking at areas in your life where you can increase natural movement. So the things that we do every day, we're not doing very much of it, but the things that we're doing every day increase the amount of it. And so the top tip I say here is take the stairs. What that means is look for opportunities in your daily life where for any reason you can increase the amount of your movement. So Natasha and I, we live in the Netherlands, so we try to bike everywhere. Cycling is fantastic. When we have to take the car into town, into Haarlem, we always park on minus level 3 in the municipal car park in the furthest corner of the car park. And then we have to walk about 100 meters to get to the elevators and the stairs. We don't take the elevator, obviously. We walk up 3 flights of stairs and then reverse that on the way back. And if we have heavy groceries, it's a bonus. Now, the impact on that from a movement point of view is massive. We've added probably, I don't know, 1,000 steps in total. And we've climbed stairs, which is amazing exercise for your cardio, for your strength. And it's time efficient because most people will spend more time fighting for a car parking space that's as close as possible, whereas we go straight to our same car parking space every single time. So we probably get out of the car park more quickly than somebody who would be fighting for a parking space. So these things don't have to take more time. You just need to be creative about how you either increase the amount or the intensity of movement that you're doing every day. For example, for you as students, take the bike to school. Don't take public transport, or get off a couple of stops early and walk a couple of thousand steps to really increase the amount of movement. And then critical is breaking up your sitting during the day. If you set a timer on your watch and every single hour on the hour, just get up and do a bit of stretching or walk to the water cooler to get a water. It's so powerful just to break up that prolonged sitting, so you're giving some energy to your heart, to your lymphatic system, getting more oxygen into your body. Okay, so I just wanted to share this slide because this was a major source of inspiration for me when I started out my journey. I did a course at Stanford on the physiology of exercise, and this was one of their slides. And it's a bit difficult to explain not being there, but if you look at the top curve is somebody who's active all of their life. You peak at your peak health is around 35, your strength, and you start to slowly decline. But you stay at a level where you can do everything you want in life. You're physically active, et cetera, et cetera. Now, unfortunately, most of us are on the orange line where you have the couch. We're not doing enough activity. And by the time we're in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, we're getting to the stage where we can't do the things we want to do anymore. You may have to have a walker or a pacemaker, something like this, where you're not fully functioning. You've gone below this threshold of functionality, this dashed line. Now, the inspiration for me was that at any time on that curve, if you start to get physically active, you can start to push that curve out again so that you avoid that threshold of functionality, and you can have a functional life until you pass away peacefully in your sleep. So that was a major inspiration for me and part of my why. Okay, now sleep. I could go on forever. I think we could do a whole session on sleep, especially in the context of corporate life and performance. This area has been vilified. It's a source of corporate bravado. I'll sleep when I die. Sleep is a waste of time. But the reality is that sleep, we now know that sleep impacts every single function in our bodies. And we know this. If you don't get good sleep, you're trying to take an exam the next day, you're suboptimal. If you've pulled an all-nighter, God forbid, I've done them, your performance on that test is almost guaranteed to be worse than if you had simply studied during the day, got a good night's sleep during the night, and got out refreshed to do the exam. So we know this, but what's becoming more and more clear is just how important sleep is to every system in our body, from repairing every cell in our bodies, our muscles, our joints, our bones. Cardiovascular health is so important to get good sleep for our health, and brain health. Our brain is literally being cleaned at night. It doesn't work when you're awake. This cleaning mechanism only works when you sleep. And there's a link now between lack of sleep and dementia, that the brain, if people are constantly short sleeping, that they don't have enough time for this cleaning process to take place. So my tip here is consistency. Like, having good habits and hygiene for your sleep is absolutely crucial. And we give a sleep hygiene list in the book for your information. Now, the final one, and this is the fun one, is fasten your seatbelt. Our health is not a single destination. It's a lifelong journey. And it's important for us to have that mindset that this is something that is going to be important until the day we die. And so, yes, there's going to be turbulence. There's going to be changes in life. You're going to go through tough periods in your university life. You're going to get a new job. You're going to move house. But if you have built this solid foundation of health, you will be able to weather those storms and to get back on course. And my final tip is enjoy the ride. Like we only live one life, although certain people believe that we have many more. But the important thing is to enjoy your health and enjoy what it enables you to do from a performance point of view. So I apologize, we've gone slightly over on my time, but hopefully that was inspirational for you and will set you on a course to adopting a more health-centric mindset. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would say beautifully curated, Mr. Jim. It really spoke about holistically, how health-centric mindset is very, very important. Throughout your interaction, I was just thinking of one term which plays a very crucial role here. Now tell me, how do you maintain consistency?
Very good question. I mean, I think the biggest factor is the why. So
Right.
when you are so passionate about something like elite athletes, why is it that these folks are so focused and so disciplined? And they will get up on a wet Monday morning when everybody else is like, no, I don't feel like going for a run today. It's shitty out. They will do it. It is absolutely essential for them to do that. And it's because they have such an emotional anchor that this is my identity. I am an elite athlete, and this is what I'm going to do. And so consistency, I think, comes from that sense that this is such an important thing to me that no matter what happens, I'm going to do the right thing. Now, having said that, look, life intervenes, and I'm not perfect by any means, but just being able to get back on track as soon as possible. Like when we travel, very hard to stay on track with a lot of your routines. You travel to these amazing places, you probably eat a little bit too much food, you don't have access to a gym, but as long as you're keeping a baseline, you're saying, okay, no to this. I know this is bad for me. I'm not going to do it. Or I'm going to get up and I can't work out in the gym, but I'm going to go for a nice walk in the city. So it's just having that constant focus on this is my lifestyle. This is who I am. And I'm not going to get it perfect all the time, but I'm going to do the best I can in that situation.
That's great. I take up a few questions with your permission from the students. Well, there's one here. What's your take on how can daily habits shape a person's health and success?
Yeah, I mean, I think habit is everything, either positive or negative. As we discussed, that's how our brains work. That's how our brains work, is we simply could not go through life thinking about every single thing that we need to do, relearning all the time. We just couldn't do it. And so it's an incredible mechanism that allows us to do repetitive tasks without having to think about them. Again, as we mentioned, that's all fine as long as those habits are taking you to where you need to get to in terms of your health. And so, I think it's really self-awareness, really noticing where those habits kick in, because that's the nature of a habit, is you do it without thinking about it. So it's really a good exercise is to do an evaluation. Okay, every aspect of my life that has any kind of an impact on my health, let's think about, is this positive or negative? If it's negative, what can I do to change it?
True, true. Can you highlight something on anger management?
Ooh, anger management. Oh boy. That's probably a little bit close to home for me because yeah, as an Irishman, I tend to be a bit fiery. My father before me was quite a fiery character. So yeah, it a lot of it has to do with stress. It's a kind of stress response. Like when we feel threatened, it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna fight this. And so it's really a crucial part of managing your stress. So things like mindfulness, like noticing when this happens. It's a habit. It's a reaction that you don't think about, and a lot of times you don't have control over. So a very powerful mechanism is called stop, and it was Robert Duhigg, I think, who originally came up with this. And it's an acronym for stop. So when you feel something coming on, it's literally notice it and say, no, okay, I'm going to take a little pause. Take a breath. So we already talked about the power of breathing. So deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then observe. So what's the situation? Is this something that I need to react to in a certain way? And what's the most appropriate way to react to that? Because if we're in a stress mode, we don't make very good decisions. It's kind of like just react, just hit the guy. But if we take that brief pause and we say, okay, is this the right thing to do? Then and only then proceed, which is the P in stop. Now, it's very hard to do that in the moment if you're a hothead like me. So you have to practice these things. You have to build it again into your lifestyle, mindfulness practice, meditation, so that if you're going through a bad day and you're like pissed off at something, sit down and say, okay, what's really going on here? Where is this coming from? And then is this something that I need to be concerned about? And why am I doing this? It's that pattern interrupt that starts to retrain your brain to say, no, actually, I don't need to get angry about this. I used to go crazy in traffic in Ireland. I'd be driving to the airport every morning. Anybody cuts me off and I'm cursing and swearing my head off. And then, at a certain stage, it's like, what does that do? It just gets my cortisol levels up. It's not going to solve anything. So it's a process of just retraining your body to deal better with these situations.
You did mention about this in your session, but there's a question on that. Can yoga or meditation help you combat the mood swings, anger, and basically, getting into that positive mindset?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's the hugely powerful tools. I think, yoga, the kind of Western notion of yoga it's a small fraction of what the full yogic practice is in India, obviously. And I had the privilege of studying with an Indian lady, and it's such a beautiful way of getting back in touch with our bodies. We live so much of our lives in our heads. That's part of the problem. The body is just like something that gets us through life. But yoga really reconnects us with the body. And that's so important for this feeling of safety and relaxation. So absolutely, it should be a part of everybody's daily routine.
That's great. I take up the last question. One moment. That's right. Yo. All right. How adapting a health-centric mindset can transform an individual definition of success? Well, the session was all about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think again the biggest piece is mindset. So, and your book deals with the same issue, is the way we think is the reality that we create. It's you can think about something as a threat and you will go into stress mode, or you can think of it as a challenge to be overcome, and you get excited about it. And you see people, who are successful and they have so much stuff going on. And you think, how the hell are they dealing with all this stuff? Like complex issues, like really kind of normally stressful stuff. It's because the way they view it is different than what most people do. And in order to be able to have that mindset, you have to feel healthy and vital in your own self. Because when we're not at our peak health, it's a source of stress itself. If you feel tired, de-energized, you're going to be more stressed out. You're going to be more wary. You're going to see things as threats instead of opportunities. So the more healthy and vital and confident we feel in our bodies, the easier it is to see things as opportunities and challenges as opposed to threats.
Very true. This last question from my side, actually. Uh, the topic that we discussed today, do you think is also very closely related to success management versus failure management?
Sorry, success management versus
Failure management.
failure management. Uh, yeah, it's a good question. We tend to have this negative attitude towards failure, like,
Right.
and some societies even more so. Like failure is just something that you never want to admit. It's like taboo. Everybody tries to avoid failure. Whereas the most successful people I find is that people who have become comfortable and actually even welcome failure. Because the only way we can truly learn is by failing. Like, how do you know if you're succeeding if you've never failed? If you've never failed, then maybe it's because you're in your comfort zone and you haven't moved out of your comfort zone, and that's the reason why you haven't failed. So I think it's a really interesting dynamic between success and failure, and it's something that we need to explore more, and become comfortable with failure as part of our success.
As part of our success. Absolutely. Well, I think we come to an end of, I would say, yet another incredible, exciting session hosted by GIBS Business School at this prestigious GIBS IRE Talks platform. And the topic was very, very niche and need of the hour. I was mentioning off camera to Mr. Jim that we'll be very soon launching an exclusive school of GIBS Mind Value, which probably would turn out to be the only institute in India to have launched something like this, which will train students to combat the stress and everything that is associated these days. That's the need of the hour, and I'm sure for this journey, I have a complete support from Mr. Jim Callaghan, and I would definitely love to include him in this journey because, I would say the efforts, the experience, the research that he has put for this is incredible. And we need somebody like him. And whatever we heard today is from the horse's mouth. So he's the one who has researched it, experienced it, practicing it, and he has shared his experience today so brilliantly. Loads and loads of takeaways for sure from this session. Thank you so very much, Mr. Jim. It was such a pleasure to host you on this wonderful platform. And I'm sure I apologize to the students as well because they have flooded me with a lot of questions here in the inbox, but paucity of time, I couldn't take it much. I would take only the one which was really very important from the audience point of view. But then I request all the audience as well that this interaction will be shared in our official YouTube channel very soon, and you can get a glance of the whole interaction once again. And yes, if you have not followed us yet, especially for the people away from GIBS or not from the GIBS, make sure you're liking us and all the social media platform, GIBS Business School, GIBS IRE Talks. I have a special request to everyone. Please like Mr. Jim Callaghan also in the LinkedIn page. It's you will be flooded with a lot of information. His research to the work, his contribution to the domain is incredible. I'm a big follower of him, so I request all my students also to do so for get more insights on the subject that we spoke today. Mr. Jim, on behalf of my entire team, GIBS Business School management, faculties, staffs, and all the students and all the audience out here, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for this incredible, wonderful session that we had. I assure you that we had loads and loads of takeaways from this. I'm already getting lots of the positive feedback of the session. And as I say, I repeat again, I indeed look forward to host you once in my campus very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Professor Rao, and I look forward to visiting you in in Bangalore.
Great. I certainly look forward to it. Thank you once again. This is Professor Guru Prasad Rao signing off, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Mr. Callaghan.
Bye-bye.